Hey guys, Teatro or Days here. I just wanted to update my video for the my module 30 Warlock DPS guide. My original video didn't really talk about my AoE build, how to play AoE, or how to play single target outside of an artifact call. So let's just, let's start with the gear section here. Just using your, standard AP helmet. Pretty much every AoE build uses one. It's just a lot of HP. You got the critical strike, critical severity chest piece here. The only reason I'm using this thing is because I don't like to use uh, damaging or strong or expensive overlords in my overload slot because I'd rather just save the money. AoE is so free. That's the reason why I use these. If not, I would probably just use something that doesn't require a lot of stat like damage. Like this one is every single hit, doesn't matter the damage. But I'd probably just use these instead. Doesn't really matter. These new stat caps have us hitting so hard anyways. But I do run the critical strike, critical severity chest piece. I'm also using the critical strike arms. They stack up pretty quick. They're not too bad. I'm also using the Hote Now weapon set. Hote Now campaign weapon set because it is just 10% instant stats all the time. Pretty cool. And the 10% movement speed on fire themed maps is pretty nice as well. Considering a lot of the best install gear comes from fire themes maps, mainly chest piece, arms for the AoE build, chest piece for the single target build, and helmet for the single target build as well. Pretty cool to have these. They're not too expensive. Also, and then we're using the combat advantage boots per enemy you're engaged with from Master Demon Web Pits. I'm just considering we're in combat with 5 enemies, so that's 10% combat advantage, which is pretty fair. Most of the packs in the game have more than 5 enemies anyways. But I really like these. It's a lot of stats, a lot of percentage stats. We're using the scintillant set for the recharge speed mainly. The axe is also nice, but mainly for the recharge speed to get the encounters back faster in between mob packs. We're using the Masterwork ring for some critical severity, and the Master Dread Sanctum ring for the critical severity and power. We're using Corey Shred of the Dragon Cult for the combat advantage, and we're using the Cerebral Predator Inc. from Master Dread Sanctum, the combat advantage and critical severity stat split, with a 9% crit save on heal. Gear bonus, I guess. The enchantments here, just the no overloads. These are pretty cool because they don't run out. They've been on 0 seconds for like months now since I first got them. I really like these. There's some free AP and AoE. And I'm using whatever you need the cap stats, but I'm using 2 Amylites, a Moonstone, and a Sapphire, and these artifacts. My powers, I'm using my at-wills. I'm using Dark Helix and Eldritch Blast. I'm using Eldritch Blast because it's the only AoE at-will we have. And then you just Dark Helix for those stragglers that you just want to kill without using your encounters, so you can save your encounters for the next pack of mobs. For AoE, there are only 4 viable encounters, which is Arms of Hadar, Fiery Bolt, First Bite, and Hellfire Ring. Arms of Hadar is okay. I'd really only use it if your tank is really bad and you need some extra CC to help stay alive. But it's not a encounter it's not a bad encounter at all. You just gotta make sure to cast it at least twice for it to be better than Fiery Bolt. Or on par. But other than that, we are using Hellfire Ring, Frostbite, and Fiery Bolt most of the time. For a daily, it's always going to be Soul Siphon. What you want to do is throw down a Hellfire Ring, get some CA on the mobs, and then Soul Siphon, Curse Bite all the time. Every single time you have Soul Siphon, you want to pair it with a Curse Bite. A lot of damage. Because Soul Siphon does curse targets it hits. That's pretty useful. We are using One's Blessing and All-Consuming Curse in our class features. Now, Dust to Dust and Shadow Walk are viable, for some more flat damage and some more movement speed. Both are very valuable in AoE. And a 2.5% critical strike if you need the stats. But I like Dark One's Blessing for the extra soul sparks when we go into combat. And this is for when I can, at will, the stragglers who I can't get in my Hellfire Ring or Fiery Bolt, I can just throw one encounter and then Curse Bite to get more value from this encounter. Obviously, these two just in case you want those instead of this one, but I do recommend keeping this one all the time. But any combination of these four class features will work. Just pick your favorite two and go from there. Our class features, we are picking Power of the Nine Hells over Double Scorch, because if we went with Double Scorch, our only way to get Soul Investiture is to either kill a cursed target with Dark Prayers, which isn't really an option because we are constantly removing curse, or we use Hadar's Grasp, which is absolutely awful in AoE. Super long cooldown, damage over time, and it's only a single target skill. So we try to stay away from that in AoE as much as we can. So we use Power of the Nine Hells instead to attack Soul Investiture with Hellfire Ring and Fiery Bolt. For the second set of encounters, Parting Blasphemy or Warlock's Curse, we are picking Parting Blasphemy because we would rather the flat magnitude and not have to worry about hitting already cursed targets. Because Warlock's Curse only applies its damage bonus to targets already inflicted with curse. So that means if, say, I'm gonna throw Hellfire Ring down as an opening encounter, the Warlock's Curse will not increase the damage of Hellfire Ring until I use a second one on a target that is already cursed. We are using, for the third feature, we're using Risky Investment over Soul Desecration. Soul Desecration is pretty awful in AoE. Soul Puppet is slow, doesn't really hit more than one enemy, and I'd rather not rely on a Soul Puppet for anything. So we are using Risky Investment instead. Up to 30% counter damage is pretty strong. Definitely a no-brainer there for AoE. Now for for AoE on the fourth slot, we are using Executioner's Gift over Creeping Death because Creeping Death just doesn't have time to stack in AoE, and 30% damage is pretty strong, up to 30% damage. I like to assume this is an average about 15% damage, over a run, or increased damage over a run, because the target is always, you can average it out. They're full or dead, so they're going to be average 50%. We got Soul Spark Recovery for the flat cooldowns. We'll never have enough. We're always going to be prioritizing cooldown reduction over the flat damage in AoE, because more encounters is better than stronger encounters. Because sometimes you'll be waiting a few seconds to use your encounters on the next pack of mobs. But I'd rather just have the flat cooldown from Soul Spark Recovery. Keep things consistent. For the boons, pretty standard stuff. Just all your offense, movement speed. This one for Master Lair of the Mad Dragon. And then Forte, action point gain, and recharge speed. For the Master Boons, what you want is Blessed Advantage, mainly. But Deathly Rage is also very strong if you just want to use those as cap stats. Ideally, you swap it with Bloodlust. But I just copied this boon page from my single target loadout because I couldn't be bothered. We're on power bonus, defense bonus, and movement speed bonus. For the companions, we're just using 3 of these Molten Tome of the Companions for the combat advantage, critical severity, and forte. Celestial Companion enhancement, using Enduring Senses for the combat advantage, using a stat companion in the defense slot. Because Minsk, I believe, I haven't confirmed, but I've been told it doesn't work on 1 and 2 circle enemies, which is basically every single ad in the game. We got Spine Devil's Influence, Brainer here, strongest AoE companion, every single class. We got Neverwinter's Knife for the base damage, And we got Raptor and Golden Cat for the stats. For the mounts, we're on Opportunistic and Grand Inspiration. In really high DPS groups, you will be getting more value, as in more speed, from Space Guppy or Vortex, because you won't need the extra damage from Grand Inspiration. Everything is dying instantly. So I'd rather just keep everything grouped up and keep things dying consistently. So, always got our collars and counter powers and critical severity. Make sure you have these two always, and then there's other three or whatever you want. I picked the movement speed, 80 bonus, and outgoing healing. I'm using 2 covenants, 1 of each on the 4-slot ones, 1 executioners, 1 menders, 2 gladiators guile, and 1 tactician's precision or AoE, just to get some cooldown in after I use it daily, just to keep things consistent. Sometimes my second curse bite won't be up for my AoE rotation, so the daily just helps bring it up and keeps me able to stay kind of aggressive with my counter use. As for the types of insignias, I just hover over or click on each mount and let you guys see. So 1 skill, 2 dominance, 1 brutality, 2 dominance, 2 skill, 1 brutality, 3 dominance, 3 dominance, 1 brutality, and 2 dominance and 2 brutality. If I can put him in a gladiator, always, obviously try to put him in preferred slots. I just, threw this together really quick. I'm sure there's a mount that has a bonus slot for Gladiator's Guile. That'll do it for AoE. To go over the rotation for AoE, pretty simple. You just want to throw down Curse Bite, use a Curse, or throw a Hellfire Ring, then a Curse Bite, then a Hellfire Ring, Curse Bite. A lot of the time, I would save my second Curse Bite for the next pack just to have it, to keep things consistent. Because Curse Bite is the highest damaging encounter we have for AoE. So, just keep that in mind. But if the group's really slow, have at it. Get as much damage as you can. There's really no point not to. For when you do have a daily, you just want to, depending on how fast the group is, you're going to Hellfire Ring, Curse Bite. If it's a really fast group, do not Fiery Bolt. If it is, just throw a Fiery Bolt. Sometimes I like to Hellfire Ring and Fiery Bolt another pack just to have more CA on the enemies. Then I'll daily, then Curse Bite, and then my other encounter should be off a cooldown in like 1 or 2 seconds. Hopefully they're dead by then. You can also throw down a mount power just before you daily so that it hits while you do your daily, get big damage right there. Absolutely nuke your targeted pack. That's pretty much it for AoE. Again, I will have the stats in the description, but the buffs I use, it's going to be Sunlord's Gift, Ratatouille, Hotwings, and Flask of Potency. That is also what I use for my single target loadout. I'll let you guys know. Alright, for single target. Oops. Alright, for my single target loadout. Let me just do this so you guys see my stats properly, so that my campfire buff does not show. As I do not build with campfire buff because, stuff happens, lag or whatever, you're gonna die. You're always gonna die. Unless you're like the perfect player. But I wouldn't worry about that too much. Dying's no big deal. That's also why I don't build with Totem. This should be Totem. As, you're gonna get the combat advantage from your helmet, but if you die, that's forever. So, I mean, just try to not die, obviously. Do your best. Let me swap my companions so you see my stats correctly, so accurate in the description. And buffs here. But just, imagine 2% less accuracy and 5% less combat advantage. So for my gear, we're going to be using the combat advantage helmet from Master Lair of the Mad Dragon, the accuracy and combat advantage chest piece from Master Lair of the Mad Dragon, the power arms from Advanced Defense of the Moon Dancer, There is the Master Demon Web Pits arms that are more consistent with the power. Let's see if I can find them. These. But you lose a bunch of movement speed and you lose about, I think it's about like almost 2% offensive stats and the item level as well. And these aren't too bad. I mean, if you don't get hit for 10 seconds, you're going to lose all of your stacks, but you build your stacks up pretty quick. And if you get hit, just 10 seconds refreshes. It's not that big a deal. And we're using the Master Demon Web Pits Perfect set for the critical severity and critical strike. 5% of each. Very strong. And the damage reduction when low stamina is also super, super strong as well. We are using the Masterwork boots here. Got these super cheap, got lucky, but if you don't have them, I would just use the Seals gear. I think it's down here. Earlier. Yep, right here. These boots right here. You're just gonna have to. You're gonna lose a little bit of accuracy, and if you do use these boots, make sure your chest piece is with the critical strike jewel, so you don't lose out on that rating, because critical strike is more important than accuracy. But you would just be losing about 2,000 accuracy, 2% accuracy, from this version of the build, so it's no big deal. These are the enchantments I'm running: 2 Amylites, a Peridot, and a Bismuth, as well as these artifacts. Oh my goodness, I didn't go over my other side. Sorry. Using a detector set, as you noticed, for the combat advantage and Forte. The Forte gives us 3.5% power and 1.75% critical strike. These ring from Masterwork ring for the crit sev, and the Master Dread Sanctum ring for the stats as well. Using the 5% combat advantage shirt and the critical severity pants from Master Dread Sanctum. Now this is the accuracy version. In our AoE version we use this one, so make sure you do farm for both if you want to have the correct version of this build. Yep. This one technically give more stats, but you could probably just make do without it. Play with stats around. Not too difficult to balance some ratings, at least good enough. For powers, using Dark Helix and Hellish Rebuke. The goal with these at wills is to have Hellish Rebuke damage over time always applying. That way you get the extra spark generation and then just animation cancel Dark Helix. As the Module 30 Warlock update actually made Warlock a good single target class, we are, and one of the changes was the Dark Helix no longer needs a charge to be used, but it has one less maximum charge. So basically, it's just completely a buff because you can use it as a base at will now, like all the time. Super cool. I love this thing. It's a lot of damage as well. For single target, there are 3 viable encounters for pure single target. It's going to be Hadar's Grasp. This one's a staple. It can't be removed. This is the only way we generate Soul Investiture for our skills or for our class. And then we use Vampiric Embrace and Killing Flames. Now, I know technically Blades of Vanquish Army is better on paper, but in practice it's actually quite a bit worse. For one reason, it's because you have to be on top of your target to make sure it deals all of 3 hits for it to deal more damage than Vampiric Embrace. And the cast time of Blades of Anguish Army means that you are not able to get 1 extra at will off in an artifact call instead of using Vampiric Embrace. So basically, every time you cast Blade of Anguish Armies, you're giving up 1 Vampiric Embrace and 1 encounter. And just because of that, doesn't matter if it's an artifact call or not, you will lose damage by using Blades of Vanquish Army, even if you do play perfectly. We have for hybrid situations in single target, just swap out Vampiric Embrace for Hellfire Ring. And then that's pretty much it. You shouldn't need to do anything else. Hellfire Ring is pretty strong. And then just use, your other at-wills whenever you need to. For dailies, it's probably always going to be Tyrannical Curse. Because, it's a decent damage. It's got a low cast time. And it increases damage received by the target from you by 15%. Very strong. Also, in hybrid fights, this thing is freaking busted. So you do 15% of the damage to the tyrannical curse target to every enemy within 30 feet. And I believe that's a radius. So it's a pretty big area. It's so much damage. But also have Brew of Hadar. I'm not really sure about this one. I just hear people say it's pretty good. I can't remember if it's better or not than Tyrannical Curse, but I'm just so used with the timing of Tyrannical Curse. That's what I use. But if anybody knows, let me know. I'd happy to learn about it. But I just use Tyrannical Curse. For the class feats, we also have 4 viable options here. Gonna be Dust to Dust, Deadly Curse, Dark Prayers, and All-Consuming Curse. Now, All-Consuming Curse cannot be removed. If you don't have All-Consuming Curse equipped, your build or Warlock will not function properly. You'll be doing a lot less damage. But between these 3 right here, it's just, you can pick some more flat damage. You just have to manage your Soul Sparks better. Because Dark Prayers does give you a Soul Spark every time your Soul Puppet attacks. And it does have a pretty fast attack time. And that's the only reason why I use it, just for some more Soul Sparks. Makes things more consistent, more smooth. But all 3 of the damage is very, very similar. It's just really hard to calculate the damage difference with Dark Prayers because there's so many variables. But, you can't go wrong with Deadly Curse, Dust to Dust, or Dark Prayers. Pick your favorite one out of the 3. I like Dark Prayers because of the Soul Spark game. Now, in single target, since the fights are a little longer, we can rely on Hadar's Grasp for Soul Investiture stacks. Just make sure you always use it Curse Consume. Because if you miss a Curse Consume Hadar's Grasp, you have like a 1-second window to gain it back without losing all your stacks. So just, be really careful with that. And with that, we're allowed to use Double Scorch. It's absolutely crazy in single target because we are hitting for 1350 magnitude every time I use an 18 spark Soul Scorch. So it's a 900 magnitude initial hit plus a 450 magnitude dot, which is about, I think, 75 damage a second, if I remember properly. Hopefully my math is right. And then Double Scorch is almost a quarter of Warlock's damage. It's pretty crazy. This is definitely a staple for single target. Since we are using All-Consuming Curse on one target, Warlock's Curse will outdamage Parting Blasphemy, even though we have 2 Curse Consume powers, because Warlock's Curse will apply its damage bonus to all 3 of our encounters, and our Soul Scorch and our daily. We're using Risky Investment over Soul Desecration. Now, these 2 are really close. I do want to say that. But if you are playing Warlock optimally with Soul Spark Recovery, or Risky Investment is better. It's just, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, it is... No, yes, it's correct. It takes a minute for it to outperform Soul Desecration. So, obviously, Soul Desecration, you have 1 less stack to worry about because your Soul Puppet is always up, so you get max Soul Investiture stacks 1 Hadar's Grasp earlier. But basically, Risky Investment does give you a higher ceiling with good play. And if you're playing, pretty optimally, it'll outperform Soul Desecration around, about 1.5, 2 minutes into a fight. So pretty good. Well, maybe not 1.5 minutes, a little earlier than that. Basically in the middle of the second artifact call, a little bit before. That's when it'll start to outperform Risky Soul Desecration, and then it'll get a little bit better as the fight goes on, as you stay at max stacks. And then for pure single target, I'm going Creeping Death, because Creeping Death is a pretty strong feat. It's 125 magnitude every 2 seconds. it does add up over time. You know, sometimes I get 100 million creeping death damage numbers on, you know, Last Dragon Mayor the Mad Dragon, or Last Boss Layer the Mad Dragon, for example. Pretty fun to see. We also have Executioner's Gift. Now, these two are very close, super close. But when you, as soon as you start to factor in like super optimal stuff, like you have a bard and a wizard, well, mainly just a bard. As soon as you get a bard, Executioner's Gift becomes notably worse. By notably, I mean less than 1%, but you know, that's what we're fighting for here in this game. Then Creeping Death. And but then as soon as you factor in everything else, it gets a little worse. So definitely use Creeping Death in pure single target fights, or fights where you don't have to worry about the little ads. Like when you have really high damage for second and third boss in Master Dread Sanctum, I would use Creeping Death instead, because it's more single target damage. I don't have to worry about the ads because we're phasing the boss so fast. But if you are doing bosses that require you to focus the ads, you know, such as Demon Web Pit's second boss, or later the Mad Dragon second boss, Executioner's Gift is just straight up better, because it is more damage in a shorter amount of time than Creeping Death can provide in that same amount of time. Also, because Creeping Death can't, you know, apply as many stacks in that short amount of time, which is the main reason why. We are using Soul Spark Recovery over Wrathful Souls. Now, these two are very close again. I wish Soul Spark Recovery was a staple, because, you know, that's basically Warlock's whole identity, cooldown reduction. That's what makes Warlock Warlock. If we use Wrathful Souls, we're basically just playing a glorified wizard, or, you know, a goth wizard. But, you know, if you can't get used to the playstyle, this is an option for you. You know, just throw down encounters, throw down 2 Soul Scorches, and then gain your Soul Scorches back. Then throw down your counters once you have max Soul Scorches. It's a super brain dead playstyle, just like Wizard. But thankfully, Soul Spark Recovery is better. But, you know, with that, becomes the hardest class in the game to play optimally. Because you no longer have a set rotation, now you have to learn how to play dynamically. You have to watch cooldowns, you have to manage Soul Sparks, and you have to manage cooldowns, so that you're not wasting the cooldown reduction every time you Soul Scorch. That way you can maximize the amount of encounters you can cast in a fight. I'll talk about a little bit, you know, basically a little bit about it later on when I go over the artifact rotation and stuff. But, you know, this is my reasoning for the powers here. I'll also have some numbers with the DPS. I should have, probably put a link in the description if I don't put one on the screen right now. For the boons, same thing as my AoE loadout, just using Revive Sickness instead of movement speed. Same boons here. Power, movement speed, damage, recharge speed, AP gain, and forte, and just whatever you want in the other points. I put mine at HP. Maybe in the order of importance that I would pick, definitely would be Blessed Advantage, Bloodlust, and Life Lessons. But ideally, you want all three. They are pretty strong. For companions, obviously, summon is whatever the group needs. Don't use striker companions that don't support. Don't use augment companions. That's basically it. But, you know, same gear here as the AoE. Just, you know, combat advantage, crit save, forte, split, molten toma of the companions. Using Batiri, Neverwinter Knight, and the bigger they are, as well as Raptor's Instincts and Golden Cat. For the companion enhancement, if you just want to go personal, you would be going Perfect Vision. If not, you know, preferably the group is on debuff enhancements. So like dulled senses, vulnerability, slowed reactions, stuff like that. Well, maybe not slowed reactions, but, you know, definitely vulnerability, dulled senses, and armor break. Those are the big three. It is more damage. I think it's 5% more damage if the whole group is running debuff enhancements. Now, the reasoning, it's just because, you know, think about it. If everybody has 9% personal damage with target, you know, it's a lot of, it's a little bit of damage to everybody, but say the boss has 27% less stats from everybody in the group. That means technically everybody in the party has 27% more stats. So it is definitely way better. That's the reasoning behind it. But it's not like crazy damage. Honestly, just, personal will get you plenty of the way through. It's not too big a thing to worry about. For the mount page, we're going with Predator's Focus and a Giant Toad Tongue Lash. Now, there is an argument to be made for Hell on Faerun. It is technically more damage, but I just use Toad because I like the bigger hit. That's the only reason why. Also, Toad, actually, there is one more reason why. If you're in like a super duper burn group doing speed runs and shit, Toad is probably better because Hellfire Engine won't have time to do all 5 seconds of his damage over time. But that's the only reason. That's like, the 1% of the 1% of groups. It's pretty much not even something to worry about. For the mount equip bonus, we are using Predator's Focus. Now, if you do have any sort of crit bonus in the party, a blue fire eye companion, an Etrian companion, or a paladin with Aura of Wrath, you should swap Predator's Focus to Opportunistic. That way you can rely on less stacks from your helmet, so you get max damage quicker. For the insignia bonus page, obviously crit sev, encounter power collars, and then the 3 I showed earlier. And we're using 2 of the covenants again, the executioners and menders, preferred slots as well. And then we're using artificer's enticement, cavalry's haste, and tactician's precision. Now, the only reason this is a cavalry's haste and not a second tactician's precision is because I have a preferred slot for it. Other than that, it's more annoying to play like this instead, because you have to make sure you use your mount just before your daily goes off, because when you're casting Tyrannical Curse, you can, in the middle of the animation of the daily, throw down your mount and your belt. So just before it hits, you want to throw those down so that they hit after your daily goes off and hits the target. But yeah, it's basically because Cavalry's haste has like a quarter second or a half second, I guess, activation timer after your mount is activated. Pretty annoying, but it's pretty easy to get around. And that's what I use for my mount page, Artificer's Enticement. It's just there to, lower the, I guess, to make sure your artifact calls are more consistent. And there's a little cool thing you can do if you can, get a little bit of time just before the first artifact call on a boss to do a full rotation before you do a call and have your counters up in time for the call. I'll show that off in a little bit over here. But just to go over the insignias, you got 1 skill, 1 dominance, 1 brutality, 1 aggression, 2 dominance, 1 skill, 1 precision, preferred slot, 1 brutality, 3 dominance, 1 dominance in a preferred slot, and then 3 dominance, 1 skill, and 1 skill, 2 dominance, and a second skill. I didn't go over my enchantment. Sorry about that, guys. So we got power, we got an Amalite, a Peridot, a Bismuth, and a second Amalite. We have our active, artifact, and then, our stats, and then for a set. For the active artifact, ideally you're on either Crystal or Marco's Mystic Marker. If you do go Crystal, you can swap the Amalite for a Mother of Pearl and maintain your ratings, but it's no big deal. I like to use Marco's Mystic Marker. It's got a slightly shorter cast time, so I can have more time to fit all my encounters and an artifact call. But for the artifact call specifically, what we're going to do is really tight, so you do have to practice a little bit if you haven't before. But basically, we're getting 3 Killing Flames, 3 Vampiric Embraces, and 2 Hadar's Grasp, as well as 2 18 Spark Soul Scorches off, in addition to the Daily Mountain Belt in an artifact call. The total magnitude, gosh, it's if I consider killing flames at 650 magnitude. Oh man, I DM'd it to someone, but it's like a little over 14,000 magnitude. A lot of magnitude. It's pretty cool. Maybe if I find it, I'll put that in the description as well. But I don't think I added the math in that DM, so maybe not. But basically, for the just before the first artifact call in a fight, what you can do is you can first a target, a Hadar's Grasp, Killing Flames, and vampiric Embrace, and then throw in a couple at wills to get 18 sparks, which is 3 circles on your soul spark meter. You can tab, and then you artifact, and then your encounters will be up within 1 or 2 seconds, right? So just make sure you time for that, play around with the timings, and get used to it. But that's basically what you want to do if you your group doesn't like the insta call artifact. If not, depending on how often early your group calls the first artifact call, you might be able to fit in Killing Flames and a Vampiric Embraces only. But sometimes you won't. No big deal. It's just something to squeeze out a little extra damage on the damage chart. But for the artifact call specifically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure curse is on the target. So we're gonna hellish rebuke, and we're going to artifact, and we're gonna Killing Flames, Vampiric Embrace, hellish rebuke, Hadar's Grasp, hellish rebuke, daily, mountain belt, and we're going to Killing Flames, Vampiric Embrace, hellish rebuke, Soul Scorch, Hadar's Grasp, hellish rebuke, Soul Scorch, Killing Flames, and Vampiric Embrace. So I'll put that in the description as well. But I guess to make it look, I'll show you guys off here, just to show it does fit. So, get your curse on, have a couple of soul sparks. Go. If it does fit, I finished my Vampiric Embrace up a little before the 50-second mark. It does fit. It's just pretty tight. So you do have to play around with it and get used to the rotation. And you have to know how to animation cancel Killing Flames in your at wills, or else you will not have enough time. Animation canceling is pretty easy. It's pretty simple. It's just doing it while you're doing everything else is a little, tricky. But once you get used to it, you can become second nature pretty quick. But to animation cancel, you just want to hold 2 directional keys, which is WASD for my keyboard, and then you want to press shift. Now you want to hold the 2 keys and then press shift. That's cancel. So you see, this is my normal at will. I'm holding down 2 movement keys, and then I can spam my dodge key, which is shift. Now you saw me moving like weird, right? You saw me moving weird earlier. That's why I like to hold 2 opposite directional keys instead of non-opposite directional keys. So say I hold A and D, left and right, my at will. Then as soon as the little orb comes out, you can do it a little earlier, but to make it easy, as soon as your orb comes out on the dark helix, you want to cancel. And you can see here, this is how you animation cancel. You can do it really fast, but there's really no point because you're just using up stamina and you're not getting any hits that much faster. You can do it for here as well. As soon as the little circle starts to as soon as it you see it, just before it appears, that's when you want to cancel hellish rebuke. You just play around with it, get a feel for it. You'll get used to it. It does take practice. Warlock is the hardest game in the class to master, actually. It's pretty cool. Pretty fun class. I like it, I still have some to learn, but this is what I know. Just have to get better at doing it. But that's it for the powers. But to play, the builds generally, but to play Warlock, it is pretty dynamic. But normally use your counters, blah blah blah. And then you tab here, and then you see I can cast another Soul Scorch, but you saw my encounters were at 1 second. And 2 seconds on my Hadar's Grasp. I don't want to cast a Soul Scorch then. I just want to wait the 1 and 2 seconds. Then use my encounters. And then, throw another at will and then a Soul Scorch. Every time you throw a Vampiric Embrace, you want to at will. And then, every time you throw a Hadar's Grasp, you want to at will before your next encounter. So make sure whenever you Soul Scorch, you aren't wasting the cooldown it's going to give you on your encounters. And that's very important, or otherwise, you might as well just be using Wrath of the Souls and get more damage. I think that's pretty much it for this build guide, slash how to play Warlock guide. Y'all have any questions, let me know. I would do my best to answer them. But yeah, I think that's it. Hope y'all enjoyed. I'm out of here. Peace out.